So now that we have our hit data being sent and received from the server, so we can apply, whatever we need, such as damage and all that stuff. I'm actually going to move that down here. What we want to do is we want to start working on the actual ammo side. So specifically, the magazine ammo and just getting that, set up for testing's sake. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and go to our firearm attribute set, and we want to make a constructor. So this is just temporary. We're going to actually be initializing our attributes through a gameplay effect later. But for now, we just want to we want to basically initialize the current magazine ammo. So we can do that by just doing init magazine or init current magazine ammo. And we'll just set this to 10. So this will make us have a magazine ammo of 10. And we'll actually do the same thing for the magazine capacity as well, because why not? So let's go ahead and recompile and relaunch. Just make sure we actually have these values as we need them. So that way we can set up the gameplay effect so I can discuss that and explain how we're going to be using that predictively in our fire ability to basically, when we shoot, immediately update our current magazine ammo, because we're going to be following similar concepts for the reloading part as well. So once we are back inside of the editor, we can actually go ahead and close both of those. So we're going to play as standalone and just do the show debug ability system. And we can see that our current magazine and magazine capacity are both 10. So when we shoot, we want this to decrement. Now the way we're going to do that is through the cost. So we need to make the fire ability a blueprint ability. So we're going to go to core, gas, abilities, and we'll make a new gameplay ability off of the fire ability. So gameplay ability fire, and let's name it GA_fire. Open that on up, and we need to set the cost. So where we do our apply cost right here, this is the cost that is being applied, and it's a gameplay effect. So we need to actually make one of those. So let's go back to our gas folder and make a new folder called effects. Now inside of there, we can make a new gameplay effect, and we'll call it GE underscore. Let's do decrement ammo, or decrement magazine ammo. Okay, so let's start getting into the discussion of what are gameplay effects if you don't already know. If you do already know, just skip forward. So in our case, a gameplay effect is used for actually quite a few things. Now, in our very specific context of this fire ability, this gameplay effect is going to be used to take our magazine ammo, and because it's starting at 10, every time we apply the cost, we want to subtract 1. So our gameplay effect is going to simply subtract 1 from our ammo. So the way we can do that is if we go to modifiers, you can see we tell it which attribute we want to modify, so the current magazine ammo, and we can see the operation we want to do. So in our case, we want to add to it. We can multiply, we can divide, not entirely sure what this does, and we can override the value as well. So we're going to leave it as add because we're just going to be adding -1. So our modifier magnitude, this is our value. In our case, we can do a variety of these, and we are going to be using the scalable float and the set by caller in the future. So we'll be covering set by caller in a separate video. But we want a scalable float, which is basically just a fixed value that we are going to use. So we want -1. If I was to change this to, say, -5, it would subtract 5 from our current magazine ammo every time this effect was applied. Next up, we have the duration policy. Because we want this to be, instant snap your fingers of a change and only happen once, we set this to instant. There are infinite effects as well, which will run as it says right there, this effect will last forever. It'll last until we remove it. And then for has duration. So has duration would be, okay, we want this to apply periodically, and we just tell it how often we want it to run and how often we want it to run for. So we want instant. Next up, in GA Fire, we can just simply set our cost to the Decrement Magazine Ammo gameplay effect. Now we just need to switch to use this gameplay ability instead of the C++ one. So go to Data, 1911, and open up the 1911 data asset and change it from Fire to GA Fire. So now, when we shoot, we should see our current magazine ammo go from 10 to, say, 9. Well, I double tapped, so 8. And then if I keep shooting, you can see we're at -1. And now, when I left click, I cannot actually shoot anymore. So it's going to be kind of difficult for me to show because it's, well, not show, but time it right. So let me get down to 1 shot remaining. So I have 1 round in the magazine. And if I left click, I can shoot. Granted, I shot twice again, but I can basically, if the value is 0, we can no longer shoot. So that's the other cool part about the cost. So this is done natively in the can activate ability function that we have not overridden yet. But basically, if the value that is required to basically use this effect, if it cannot be taken, beyond 0, for example, then the effect, well, the ability itself does not get applied. So it's already doing checks inside of the cost to see, okay, do we even have enough of this attribute to take away this value? So even if I set it to like -5, what you'll see is, let me go ahead, crap, I double tapped. You'll see we start at magazine ammo of 10, I shoot, now we have 5, and I shoot, we have 0, well, -5 because I double tapped. I need a value that's not 5 actually. I needed something like, let's do -3. This will probably show up better. So, right, so we have 1 round left, but when I left click, as you can see, nothing happens. And if I had this value at 1 or -1 instead of -3, I would be able to shoot when our ammo is at -1. So I feel like I over-explained that, but hopefully that kind of makes sense in regards to how it works by default with the cost. So now that we have that, let's play as client, and we want to start looking at the predictive side of things. So I should probably actually slow down my fire rate, but current magazine ammo is 10, and I'm going to hold it until we get to round 3 or shots or so. There we go. So now we're at -1. So as you can kind of see, it did not, go down predictably. So if we look at the value, 10, and I'm just going to hold it, you can see it's very stuttery. So it's not updating smoothly. It went from 10 to 9, then there was a pause for maybe half a second to say 3 rounds, then negative something, then negative something more. So it's not working predictably. So what we want to do is make it work predictably. Now, the reason we have this handle target data function is entirely for this purpose, because what we're going to do is we're going to create a new scoped prediction window. And that's where it's basically going to, try to think of a way to explain this. So here we have the scoped prediction key for the current prediction key. So every time we shoot in full auto, because so let me start from the beginning. When we activate an ability, a prediction key is created for us. So we basically have our own, I'll just call it scoped prediction window in this context. So we have our own little prediction window that we're working with. And if this is like an instant ability, so we activate, we apply the cost, and then we end the ability, that's perfectly fine. That will work. But in our case, we're adding some delay because we're sending data from the client to the server, and the server's just responding to it. So that scoped prediction window is, well, it's no longer going to be valid for this case. So what we need to do is every time we try to shoot, we need to create a new scoped prediction window. Now this is very easy to do. Right where we have our ability system component, we're just going to do F scoped prediction window. We're going to create a new scoped prediction window and just pass in our ability system component. So now let's go ahead and give this another try. Okay, once that is finished, go ahead and hit play. And we have it at 10. And now when I shoot, you can see it was actually decrementing smoothly. So, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, so on and so forth. However, it also updated pretty much instantly, and that's because we're testing in the editor without any sort of latency. So we're going to go to Editor Preferences, hit play, and go to Enable Network Emulation, and I'm going to use the bad preset. So now we'll basically have a fair bit of lag. So, show debug, let's watch the value, and you can see there was the base and everything, and it basically just kind of catches up. So now we have 1, and I'm just going to hold it, and you can see the base is continually kind of jumping into, what's the word? It's jumping to where it's supposed to be. I don't know how else to really describe it. But you can basically view the base as kind of the original value that is being offset by the current value, if that makes sense. So now we can change this and turn network emulation back off, and we are good to go. So that is going to be all for this video. We, for the most part, have our firing logic just about done. However, we need to make it to where once we run out of ammo, such as we no longer have, a value of greater than 0 in our current magazine ammo attribute, we are going to want to go ahead and just simply end the ability. So, with that said, I will see you in the next video. If you like what I'm doing and you want to help support me, you can find a link to my Patreon in the description below, which will also grant you early access to this entire series.